In this video, I want to briefly go over the cyclic learning rate as a way to bypass plateaus when training your neural network model. This plot here shows the cost or the loss as a function of the epoch for a project that I'm working on right now. And what I did was I trained the model for 3 different types of learning rates for 20,000 epochs to compare which one worked the best. And the low learning rate I set to 0.001, the high learning rate I set to 0.1, and it was just constant throughout the entire training. And you can see for both of these cases, the learning rate dips down quite dramatically at first, but then it reaches a plateau. And the high learning rate does slightly better by the end, but really it's only minuscule. It doesn't really matter by that much. And then the cyclic learning rate, and I'll explain what it does in a second, but you can see that the general trend is much more downwards compared to the low and high constant learning rates. And after running it for even more epochs after this, I found that the trend continued, so it continued to go downwards. There's these spikes in the loss or the cost, but the general trend is still downwards. So the way the cyclic learning rate works is throughout the epochs, you gradually increase the learning rate from a set minimum amount, to a high learning rate, and then it goes back down to the low learning rate and gradually back up to the high learning rate. So essentially it gradually cycles from the low to the high, back to the low to the high, and so on. And you can specify the steps for each cycle and how long it actually takes to reach the maximum from the min and then back down to the maximum. So Pytorch has a good implementation of this. If you go to the Cyclic LR documentation here, you can see it's part of the Optim package. You specify the optimizer and then the base and the max LR, and those are the minimum and the maximum LRs that it will cycle between. And you can also specify the step sizes if you want, and then the mode as well. So I'm using the triangular mode, that's just the standard, and that's just a linear increase and linear decrease. So the scheduler will cycle between the base LR and the max LR in a linear way. So it'll go up linearly and go down linearly and repeat. There's also different modes as well that you can explore if you're interested. And you can see that there's different ways to adjust your learning rate as well. So what I've switched to here is the torch.optim page documentation. If you scroll down enough here, you can find a section on adjusting the learning rates, and there's different schedulers or schedulers, however you pronounce it, here. So you can see if you scroll down here, there's the cyclic one, and there's other ones as well that would be handy to explore if you're finding the similar plateau issue in your model training. So I'll show you how to implement it here. It's pretty simple actually. Firstly, you got to import it. So import torch.optim.lr scheduler as whatever you want to call it. And then you create it, and I've created it over here. You call it whatever you want, and then you put equals the scheduler dot cyclic LR. You put in the optimizer, you put in the base and max learning rates, and these are the minimum and the maximum learning rates that it'll cycle between. And then in your loop, you just step it. You call whatever you called it, you just dot step it just like you would the optimizer. And that might be with each batch or with each epoch, however you want to do it. And then that's all there is to implement it. And you can see that it certainly worked for me. And the way that I imagine that it works is that it allows you to really explore the whole loss function. And it's less likely that you'll get caught in a saddle point or a local minimum as you would if you had a low learning rate. But then on the other hand, if you have a high learning rate, there's a potential for bouncing around too much, and then you're not really learning efficiently. So the cyclic learning rate really allows the best of both worlds. It allows you to explore the whole loss function and also allows you to go down towards a minimum as well. All right, I hope this helps. And if you're finding the same issue with a plateau of your loss in your model training, give the cyclic learning rate a go. And if that doesn't work, there might be other methods. Maybe your model architecture needs to be looked at. But there's also other, like I showed on the documentation here, there's also other learning rate schedulers as well that would be worth looking at. But yeah, I hope this helps, and see you all next time.